week to get ready for this presentation. I asked them for dates when they were open for giving it in the next few months, so I could meet their schedule's needs in representing. And we all just got the notice that this is being recorded, so there will be many other members of our branch and other branchers who will be seeing this presentation.
Yes. And
it's an excellent one, and as Crystal has said a couple of times, it's very important. I was just in a meeting of the state NAACP's Environmental and Climate Justice Committee. And one of the things that people were saying there is that the members and constituents of the NAACP need to be better informed about the very issues that Rhea and Julie are going to be addressing tonight, and need this information in order to get ready for a future that doesn't look like it's going to be the best future for a lot of folks, including members and constituents of the NAACP, because folks that don't have as large a voice in the culture or in the politics of a place, they're hurt first and worst, and are already hurting first and worst in America and around the world. So I'm pleased to be able to, I'm exceptionally pleased to be able to collaborate, that I've collaborated with these two outstanding young women to bring this presentation to you. I know you're going to be awed by it. I'm going to let these two young women tell you a little bit more about themselves and then just launch into the presentation. One of our presenters is Juhi Rawal. Julie, would you put yourself into the view of all of us and show us who you are? Okay, and also Rhea Patel. There's Julie and Rhea also. Thank you. Good. And so pleased to have you with us tonight. Okay. Take it away, Rhea and Julie.
So hi, my name is Rhea Patel, and I'm currently a senior at Piscataway High School. I really wanted to become an environmental ambassador because I thought it'd be a great way to get in touch with the community and advocate for the need to proactively respond to environmental problems. So I'll be passing it on to Juhi now, who is this year's other environmental ambassador.
Hi everyone, my name is Juhi. I'm a rising senior in Piscataway High School, and I joined the environmental ambassadors due to my passion for environmental science and my dedication to spreading the cause of environmental sustainability.
So me and Juhi put together a little presentation, so I'll be screen sharing that now. I think I'll need to become host to screen share.
Yeah, okay. Akia will make you a host. There we go.
So today, me and Juhi will both be talking about Robert Bullard and his significant role as an environmental justice activist. Afterwards, we both will be sharing many exciting tips regarding many different topics. So first, we'll be talking about tips that you can do to become eco-friendly on the road. Then we'll be talking about embracing earth-friendly fashion. And then we'll move on to healthier eating for yourself and the planet. And then we will both be investigating composting and how to quit the plastic habit.
Rhea and I are actually going to begin by doing some role play and to dive more into the life of Robert Bullard and his experience as an environmental justice warrior. Rhea will be taking on the role of a news reporter, and I will be taking on the role of Robert Bullard himself.
Greetings, Mr. Bullard. It's such an honor to be speaking with you today. You're America's most important and least well-known environmental justice warrior. We are reporting live today, and the community is very eager to learn more about you. Could you please start by telling us more about yourself?
Hello, I used to be the director of Environmental Justice Resource Center at Clark University in Atlanta. I'm currently a distinguished professor at the Texas Southern University, and I've dedicated my life to the cause of environmental justice.
Thank you. Could you please tell us more about what environmental justice means?
Well, environmental justice is based on the idea that all communities, regardless of their identity, deserve equal protection of factors threatened by environmental situations, such as housing, transportation, and employment.
So why is environmental justice a civil rights issue?
In our country, people of color are often discriminated against, especially regarding the factors mentioned before, such as housing, transportation, and employment. This is why it's crucial to speak out about this issue of environmental injustice and call attention to these issues.
So Mr. Bullard, why specifically did you get into environmental justice?
As the threat of climate change rapidly approaches, I feel that these issues must be addressed. The civil justice aspects of this conversation cannot be brushed aside as the issue becomes more and more pressing.
So could you please tell us more about what you did as an environmental ambassador activist?
I aim to spread awareness of these issues and push towards systematic change for environmental justice policies.
Thank you, Mr. Bullard, for speaking with us today. It was great to learn more about environmental justice, and I'm sure the listeners are just as enlightened as I am. So that will conclude our role play session.
We will now be transitioning into our next segment. Rhea and I are excited to share some tips about useful and money-saving information in a fun and friendly format. I'll be passing it on to Rhea, who will be sharing some tips to go eco-friendly on the road.
She lost her audio. She lost her audio.
Hey, Ria, you're muted.
No, we can't hear you.
So as I was saying, whether it be a long drive or a short drive, there are always ways to save money while helping the environment at the same time. So one tip is to bring reusable water bottles instead of plastic water bottles. And using a reusable water bottle eliminates the need to constantly buy single-use water bottles at gas stations or at grocery stores along the way on your trip. Reusable water bottles are also healthier for you because plastic water bottles left in the car can leach dangerous chemicals into the water, which can affect your health. Another tip is to use cruise control while you're driving. Using cruise control can make your gas last longer and take you further out while you're on the highway. It helps you maintain a steady and constant speed, and it also maximizes your fuel consumption at the same time. So this means that you'll have to fill up your fuel less times, and which also means you'll be releasing fewer harmful emissions into the air. The cruise control button varies depending on which car you have, like where you can find it. But usually it's near the driver's seat, either on the wheel itself, and sometimes it can be in a green color. When you're driving, it's also a good idea to plan out your route in advance. Going on long detours or constantly having to backtrack in instances where your route is not planned in advance can increase your fuel consumption and emissions into the atmosphere. So mapping your route in advance can help you save gas and ultimately limit the emissions that you let out. And while you're on the road, it's also a good idea to pack your food in reusable bags and reusable containers, because on a road trip, you might have to stop in stores to pick up supplies, or you might eat in restaurants. So all those plastic bags and containers can add up. So it's good to bring reusable supplies.
Now we'll be discussing how to eat healthier for yourself and the environment. Reducing meat consumption is a strategy to eat in a more healthy and eco-environmental friendly way. Although you don't need to maintain a diet of full veganism or vegetarianism, any reduction of meat consumption can still be beneficial for the environment. One of the harmful effects of meat production is that it releases many harmful gases into the air, such as carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide. These are gases that store heat in our atmosphere and cause global warming. If every American dropped one serving of chicken per week from their diet, it would save the same amount of carbon dioxide emissions as taking 500,000 cars off of the road.
Audience members, there is going to be a quiz at the end of this presentation, so I hope you're absorbing this information.
Uh-oh.
You didn't tell us that.
Another harmful effect of the livestock industry is that it wastes resources such as water. Half of the water used in America is used for livestock, and not eating 1 pound of meat would save as much water as not showering for half a year. Meat production also uses much of our land. 30% of Earth's land mass is used to raise livestock. Consuming meat is also inefficient. It takes 16 pounds of grain to produce 1 pound of meat. Some other ways to eat eco-friendly are sourcing food organically and locally, growing a garden to use your own fruits and vegetables, using reusable cutlery, dishware, and napkins rather than disposable ones, eating in at restaurants rather than getting takeout when possible, and buying milk in returnable glass bottles.
So now we'll be moving into our next section, which is embracing earth-friendly fashion. So before we begin this section, I would like to mention that the apparel industry is the second largest polluter in the world after the oil industry. Every year, more than 90 billion articles of clothing are made worldwide, creating many toxins and pesticide waste affecting the earth. Only an estimated 1% of materials used to make clothing is recycled, and that creates an overwhelming loss of $100 billion per year. And Americans are also known to throw out about 80 pounds of clothing per year. So there's a movement called the Sustainable Fashion Movement, and this is a movement and process of fostering change to fashion products and a fashion system to create greater ecological integrity and social justice. The sustainable fashion movement promises to be the opposite of the fast fashion trend, where inexpensive clothing is produced rapidly by mass market retailers. So a sustainable fashion product is generally made in an environmental and social friendly manner along the supply chain. And when you're buying clothes, it's good to look out for brands that have eco-friendly packaging and an ethical supply chain. It's also good to opt for more natural fabrics like organic cotton, which is grown without poisonous pesticides, linen hemp, which is made from plants, tencel, which is made from wood pulp, wool, and silk. These are just a few of the materials I mentioned, but there's also more. It's good to avoid synthetic materials or man-made materials because their production requires enormous carbon dioxide emissions, and these usually aren't biodegradable. So this is two examples include polyester and nylon. And these two materials specifically are petroleum-based, which means that they can take hundreds of years to biodegrade. So there's like many brands out there that are eco-friendly, but one specific brand is the shoe brand Tom's. They source 100% of their packaging from sustainably managed forests, and they ensure their goods are made with at least 80% recycled materials. They also use organic cotton, which is grown without toxic chemicals or genetically modified seeds. They also have a new collection called Earthwise, which is made from vegan and environmentally friendly materials, including cotton and recycled polyester.
Now I'm going to discuss with you all the process of composting and how you can implement it in your own homes. You might be asking yourself, what is composting? Composting is the natural process of recycling organic material, such as leaves and food scraps, into valuable fertilizer that can enrich soil and plants. These materials can take anywhere between 3 weeks to 1 year to compost. Compost is rich in nutrients and can be used for gardening, horticulture, and agriculture. It lessens the need for chemical fertilizers, enriches the soil, and reduces methane emissions from landfills.
You're talking about environment.
So you get on your phone, you can't get on there.
Yeah.
Worms are one of the many macroorganisms that can help break up organic materials. Their presence in compost bins is helpful, but not necessary for a compost pile. We will now watch a short video about composting and how you can implement it in your own home.
Hi, I'm Kelsey, and today I'm going to show you how to turn your kitchen and garden waste into compost. Today I'm going to show you how to build a simple outdoor compost system. So, what is compost? Compost is simply food and plant waste that has decomposed. It is also a fantastic fertilizer and soil improver for your garden. All you need to make compost is an equal amount of browns and greens, as well as plenty of air and water. Browns are carbon-rich materials such as fallen leaves, paper and cardboard, straw, sawdust, and even twigs and dried prunings. Greens are nitrogen-rich, wet, organic matter such as kitchen scraps, lawn clippings, and green garden waste. Do not compost meat, dairy, or bread, as these can attract pests. Also, do not add chemicals or plants treated with pesticides to your compost. Remember that the smaller your material is cut or shredded to begin with, the faster it will break down. There are many sizes and styles of compost bins available to buy from your local garden centre, or you can always make your own. Choose a shady and accessible place in your garden for your compost bin that has contact to the ground. First, start with a layer of your biggest brown material, such as twigs and hedge trimmings, as this will allow air into the bottom layer. Then add your materials in layers, making sure you have an equal amount of greens and browns. Shred and cut up your waste as small as you have time for. The smaller the pieces of material, the faster the compost will decompose. After you have layered all of your materials, wet the heap down to ensure that all of the materials are damp but not soaked. Cover your heap with either your container lid, a tarp, or Hessian sack. Turn your compost every 1 to 2 weeks to get air into the heap. At the same time, check that the pile is moist all the way through and add water if needed. It should be as damp as a wrung-out sponge. If you want to add more kitchen scraps, add at the time that you turn the compost and add to the centre. To maintain the ratio of browns and greens, it helps to keep a pile of brown waste next to your compost to add in equal amounts to your scraps. It is important to remember that your compost will take 8 to 12 weeks to develop from the last time you add scraps or material. So to recap, build your compost out of 50% brown and 50% green materials, wet and cover. Turn every 1 to 2 weeks, and in 8 to 12 weeks, you'll have beautiful compost to fertilise your garden with. It's easy as that. Happy composting.
I hope that video demonstrated to you all how simple the process of composting can be. Now I'm going to pass it on to Ria, who's going to describe how you can quit the plastic habit.
So now we'll be sharing more tips, as Juhi said, on how to quit the plastic habit. So one good tip is to bring reusable totes to stores instead of using plastic bags. So on any shopping trip, whether you be grocery shopping at the supermarket or clothes shopping at the mall, plastic bags are almost used in every transaction, and these bags can add up. In fact, Americans use 100 billion plastic bags a year, which can require up to 10 million barrels of oil to manufacture. That just goes to show how harmful plastic bags can be to the environment, like both making them and also the aftermath of it. So it's always a good idea to bring reusable bags when possible. It's also a good idea to use bar soap instead of bottled soap. So liquid soap usually comes in like plastic dispensers, and this plastic waste can add up over time as you buy new plastic bottles of soap. And bar soap tends to come in very minimal packaging, so that is more environmental friendly in the long term. Also, using glass or metal food containers is also a very good choice because these types of containers can be easily washed and reused multiple times throughout the year. But if you already have plastic containers, it's best to just reuse those rather than throwing them away and making it single use. But overall, try to opt for more glass or food metal containers. And when you're buying cosmetic items, it's good to avoid microplastics. So the picture on the right is a picture of microplastics. So to begin, you might be wondering what microplastics are. And so microplastics are any fragments of plastic that is less than 5 millimeters in length. These microplastics enter the ecosystem through a variety of sources. One specific one being cosmetics. They can also enter through industrial processes. And microplastics can be bad because they can be harmful to our ocean and aquatic life. So for example, experiments have showed that microplastics can damage aquatic creatures. So these creatures can include turtles, birds, and other sea creatures. Microplastics can travel through waterways and end up in ecosystems that are the home to a range of marine life, including fish, plankton, sea turtles, crabs, etc. And essentially these can block the digestive tracts of these animals, diminishing their urges to eat and altering their feeding behavior. So it's good to avoid them. And so these pictures are just examples of how you might be able to identify them in products. And you might be wondering how you can identify which cosmetic products contain microplastics. So generally, when you pick up a cosmetic product that has tiny particles in it, you can look for these two terms, and those will indicate the presence of plastic microbeads.
I'd like to take this time to thank you all so much for your attention and dedication to this cause. This concludes our presentation portion, and at this moment, you can take this time to ask us any questions that you have about our presentation. Thank you.
Well, first, I would like to say, boy, this is excellent. What a wonderful, wonderful, thorough presentation. So I just want to thank you. And I think that absolutely this should be presented again. And I'm thinking that perhaps at the Piscataway Library as one place, and maybe the Metuchen Library, and the Edison Library, which we all have connections with. This was truly outstanding and educational.
I'd like to ask for other responses as well to the general, just as Crystal has indicated. What are your general responses to the presentation? I'd love to hear from a couple more.
I'd like to raise my hand. I enjoyed the presentation and learned, some of the stuff, but you have to, kind of remind yourself of it. And, as a result of the years of watching presentations like this, I have curtailed some of my diet issues, especially with meat. I agree that this needs to be shown at the various places, and I'll make sure that gets done.
Thank you, Reggie. And Akia, when we this was recorded, so let me know how others can view this, presentation because I'm going to send it to everyone I know and everyone I've ever known. I think it's really worth wide dissemination. So I want to be sure and tell all my friends and former friends about this presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. First, yeah, I agree. This was awesome. So again, thank you guys.
Yeah.
Also, yeah, I'm gonna upload this to our YouTube channel, NAACP MEAB. I'm gonna upload it probably right after we're done. So it'll be up by tomorrow morning. Keith, I can share a link with you directly.
Please do. Please do. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and we can share again on our social media because that was great. And my question for you guys is, do you think, it's two parts, do you think most of your peers think about the environment in their daily life? And also, if not, what do you think you can do to make it more interesting, or maybe more relatable to them?
I think the issue with the way a lot of people our age think about environmental issues is that they see lots of media portrays this issue as almost unstoppable and like inevitable. So they feel like the threat of climate change and global warming is never going to end and that there's nothing they can do about it. And because of this fatalistic mindset, a lot of people don't try to live in a more eco-friendly way because they feel there's nothing they could do as an individual. I don't believe that's true.
Thank you, Julie. That's a big problem. And it's not only a problem among your contemporaries, it's a problem among the general population of all ages, that they are unaware that we can address this problem. Yes, it's a crisis. It's a big crisis. It seems overwhelming. And you're right, the media, shame on you, media. The media tends to present it as a problem that can't be solved, but it is a problem that can be solved. Collectively, the human race has the answers to this crisis. We have those answers. We know what to do. And it's very important to speak up for that point of view, that this isn't something that we can't defeat if we don't turn our minds to it. Ria, I'd like to give you an opportunity to respond to that question as well.
I agree with Juhi. I also feel like there is a good amount of awareness about the issue throughout social media. I see a lot of people reposting like informative posts about climate change. I just think people need to feel the urge to actually do something about it. So I feel like most of us know that it's going to be affecting us in the future, if not much later. But I just think we people like in general just need more encouragement to like take steps towards fighting it.
Thank you. Thank you. Other questions for our presenters?
Not a question, I just have a comment. I'm impressed that two high school seniors are so engaged in the environment at such a way, and then doing such an excellent job with the presentation when they could be thinking about prom, graduation, and all of these types of things. It's just amazing that they are able to address a very complicated subject with a lot of resistance to it for years, and just do it enthusiastically and easy to understand. So thank you. I think you guys did a wonderful job, and you're truly, truly environmental ambassadors, and going to be more.
Thank you, Frank. Yeah, when I get a chance to work with young people like Ria and Juhi, I look back at my own high school years and think, wow, I wish I could have been this engaged and on top of things when I was their age. I wasn't. I mean, I think the generation that these two young women represent so well has many, many examples of people who are engaged and who are going to make a difference, are going to be the people who sound the alarm and get into action and make a difference. And they contrast very very strongly with me when I was in high school. By the way, I want to stand up for just a second. The three of us, Julie and Ria and I, are wearing our environmental ambassadors
All right.
T-shirts. We all have them on. They're green, and this is what they say on the front, and this is what they say on the back. So
Okay.
I see it.
that's a perk of being in the Environmental Ambassadors program.
I have a question too, because our air conditioning was on. Can you tell me the name of the person that you first talked about?
Yes.
His name is Robert Bullard, and he's been very important in the field of environmental justice. And I urge you all to look him up and do more research into him because he's a very influential figure.
And I think you said he was at Southern University. Is he at Southern?
Clark.
Oh, he's at Clark University in Atlanta.
I believe he used to work at Southern Clark. He used to work at the Environmental Justice Research Center at Clark University in Atlanta.
Right.
But he's currently a distinguished professor at the Texas Southern University.
Texas Southern. Okay. Good.
Okay.
HBCU.
Yeah, Clark is a HBCU, historically Black university there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Keith, I have a question. I'd like to ask the ambassadors, you know, when I turn on television, I see the fires in California, and I see the hurricanes and tornadoes, and I see the, you know, all of these. I mean, we're going to experience a heat wave in the next few days. You know, what goes on in your minds when you see these or experience these particular issues?
I think for a lot of people our age, these kind of issues that have been springing up, especially throughout our entire lives, that have been called a lot of attention to, especially in the media, they've made the world seem almost apocalyptic, and it somehow feels like there's no hope sometimes. But I think it's important to maintain hope and see it not as just an excuse to give up, but as a reason to try to prevent the things that are happening.
You got a thumbs up there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ria, what about you?
I absolutely agree with Juhi. I definitely think like the California wildfires that have been happening, they definitely got a lot of attention on social media. So I feel like people are aware of it. At the same time, it also goes to show that more things need to be done to try to prevent these things from happening in the future. Because if this continues happening, that wouldn't really be good for Earth in the long run. So it also helps to encourage people to take action.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any more questions at this time?
In the chat, Yvonne Ruddy said, what a wonderful presentation.
Uh-huh.
We have much to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have much to do. Otherwise, Ria and Julie, do check into the chat, because there's some other comments that you might want to see as well. I know that folks thought I was joking about the quiz. I was not joking. I was not joking about the quiz. So I'm going to ask you in a moment. Just tell me. I mean, it's not a hard quiz, for heaven's sakes. It's only it's a one-question quiz. That's all. And the question is, what was a fact that you didn't know previously that jumped out at you from this presentation that these our environmental ambassadors made this evening? And I'll even make it easier for you. I'm going to ask every single one. There aren't so many people on the call that we can't all contribute. We can. I'm going to make it a little bit easier by going first. And I'm going to say that the fact that jumped right out and grabbed me and shook me by the shoulders was the fact that if a household lessened their red meat consumption by 1 pound, that would save as much water, because red meat raising is really water intensive, as going without a shower for 6 months. That one really stuck. I mean, I think I and my family, we'd all rather give up a red meat meal than go around not showering for a month. So I applaud the way that Rui made that part of the presentation. She found that very, very attention-grabbing fact and brought it to our attention. All right, who wants to volunteer to tell us the fact that really jumped out?
Keith, I'd like to talk about the amount of oil that goes into plastic bags. That was eye-opening.
Yeah, wasn't it? Wasn't it? Wow.
And for me, the amount of grain it takes to get 1 pound of beef, that was outstanding. Outstanding, bring that out, especially if you know anything about farming. Yeah, didn't think about that.
I wasn't aware of plastic microbeads, and I buy body wash with those all the time, and just never thought about it. It's never talked about really, and so now it's something I know.
Good. Yeah.
And just something simple like putting your car on cruise control, that was like, wow, that's something really easy and simple to do.
I was really shocked by the fact of how if a household reduces 1 meal of meat in 1 week, that's the equivalent of getting 500,000 cars off the road. That was really
Yeah. These are big headlining facts. They are. These are big headlining facts, and I'm glad to hear that people learned some some startling and important information from this presentation tonight, because the presentation was just information packed and served a really, really useful purpose. Anyone else wish to volunteer with a important fact or insight that they learned this evening?
Some of the material made to make clothing, and especially the shoes, I didn't realize that I should be buying shoes that were naturally made or grown. So now I've got to look on the internet where Tom's is. And I send back some other things I had bought this year. Hopefully it's not too late to send them back. See if I can change.
I have to agree with Crystal with the cruise control. Like, I always heard of eco mode, and I was like, oh, that's the only way that you can be more eco-friendly with your car. But I had no idea cruise control is also something that you can utilize for that.
Anyone else want to volunteer a fact? All right, well, this has been a really enjoyable and worthwhile evening. I know that every one of us on the call feels that way, and I know that people who are going to be seeing your presentation as we disseminate it further will feel that way, and I know that our future audiences, as we get you out to various venues here in the Metuchen, Edison, Piscataway area, are going to regard this as time very well spent. Thank you very much, Ria and Juhi. I understand that Mrs. MacArthur has a welcome to our community gift for you.
Yes, and you have to realize I was babysitting, so I'm really not camera ready, so excuse me.
That's why you're hiding.
Baby had me wrestling down to the floor and stuff, so it was a rough day. So anyway, keeping with their presentation, here is the bag for you to take to the grocery store. And yes, here's the reusable water bottles for you. And here is something, planting, it's rooting for you, planting flowers to keep our planet green. So we're going to be getting this to you as just a small thank you for all of this wonderful work. And we hope that we can implement some of the things. I also found the composting very helpful.
Yes.
Because we do have a compost, but one thing that we put in there, which is not good, and I just did this, was some yogurt. So I know now I can't put any dairy products in there.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I was really impressed that they found that was really an excellent video. I don't know how many videos you had to preview before you decided that was the one to show, but that was so clear, short, to the point. Really an excellent video. A lot goes into making these presentations. I make presentations myself, and I know sometimes you have to look at hours worth of material to find what's going to be best, and that was really a super video. I have one little note to add on composting. A lot of the soil, I don't know why, I don't know how farmers manage to farm in New Jersey. A lot of the soil in places is not really wonderful. I came from the Midwest. Before I came to New Jersey, I was in the Midwest, and the soil out there is legendary. Some of the world's best soil for growing things. New Jersey's, a lot of soil is more difficult. And I have a 3-bin compost system. I have a little more complex system. But what I find is that because my soil is so dense and it contains so much shale and so much clay, that tree roots do not tend to root deeply. They tend to stay right on the surface.
Yes,
and
they
so
do.
when you put material into your compost bin, the tree roots will grow up into your compost. You're making a wonderful soil. They love the soil you're providing those roots to grow in. And then when it comes time to get the compost and put it into your soil for enrichment, you've got to separate it from the tree roots. So they said put everything right in on the ground. That doesn't work for me, and it might not work for others here in New Jersey. So I put down on the bottom of my bins, I put down 3/4 inch wood, untreated wood, so there's no chemicals in the wood, and it lasts for 2 or 3 years before it degrades. But during that time, I'm preventing the weeds from getting into my compost. So just a tiny little, another little tip there for you would-be composters. Oh, and I want to ask Dewey this question. The video, though excellent, was made for people who've got backyards to put a compost system in. What about all of us apartment dwellers who don't have a backyard? Dewey, what are they going to do about composting?
I think one of the great things about composting is that you can do it in almost any environment, regardless of where you live or the amount of light or soil that you have. In an apartment, there are different strategies. You might not use the same bin that the woman in the video was using, but if you do research online, there's definitely ways to do it in an indoor environment, especially using macroorganisms such as worms that I mentioned earlier.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And since I asked Ruhi a question, I will ask Ria one question also. Ria, it's my impression, I agree with you 100% that the glass and metal containers are far, far, far better than the plastic. We've all seen how much plastic is used every year. But aren't those kinds of containers generally quite a bit more expensive than buying just the sandwich bags and so on? Doesn't that cause a little bit of a financial distress maybe for some folks? How do you recommend coping with that?
So you can always buy like metal or glass containers one at a time. You don't always have to go out and buy multiple. You can take it one step at a time, and over time like change up your stock of containers. But at the same time, glass and metal containers are also more durable, so they're more long lasting. So in the long run, if you like buy reusable single-use plastic containers, it might end up being the same cost as buying multi-use glass or plastic containers that you can reuse and keep washing.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That concludes the environmental program from our environmental ambassadors, and I'll just turn it back to Akia and or Reggie. I thank everyone who was with us tonight. Boy, you were lucky. You were fortunate to be with us to get all this wonderful information. And I urge all of you, once this Akia gets it out on our platform so that we can share it. Let's share it very, very wisely. Ria and Julie really deserve that kind of an audience. I think these young women are stars. I think they're fabulous. It's really an honor for me to be working with them. These kind of cross-generational collaborations are wonderful, wonderful things. I'm very, very thankful right now.
I have a question too, but let Devon go first.
I was gonna say, I have one last question for our ambassadors. So I'm along with one of those people. I have friends that are like this, and I know those people say, we talk about red meat and chicken, and we still see it in Walmart or ShopRite or Stop and Shop, or we go out to a restaurant and half their menus red meat or chicken. And it's like, if we don't eat that, it's already out there. So what do you say to those kind of people that say, if it's not me eating it, it's still gonna get eaten by someone? So it doesn't matter if I get a vegetarian item or I stay away from that meat, someone else is gonna eat it anyway. So what would you say to those kind of people?
I was actually raised vegetarian, and as a kid, I also had these kinds of questions, and I would see like meat in the stores, and I would think, if it's already dead, what difference does it make if I'm not eating it? And now that I'm older, I think the realization I've come to is that by you yourself abstaining from meat, although somebody else will eat that, the amount that you haven't consumed then doesn't need to be reproduced to restock those shelves or to refill that restaurant. So for that reason, I think that your own abstaining from meat you don't even need to not eat it completely, but just by saying no to like one meal and choosing to make one vegetarian meal, you can make a difference. And in my presentation, I showed a bunch of options where just refusing a little bit of meat can make a large difference.
Thank you, Juhi. Thank you.
So Kate, the question that I had to do with the wrappings. For example, I go to Costco and get salmon, and they have little individual packages, but it's in a bigger kind of heavy plastic. Are those plastics recyclable, or what do I do with plastic? Like,
well, at the moment, that's a good question. And at the moment, I don't have a very good answer for you. No, those kinds of plastics are not readily recyclable. And so they're just going to have to go in your trash. But what I do, and I get, when I shop and I get things that are wrapped in so many things, it's not only food products, but just so many products are out there that they're just fine in their paper packaging, but then they're wrapped up in plastic as well. I say, as a consumer, I would really appreciate seeing the products that you sell wrapped in less plastic. And the more that you give that kind of input to retailers, hopefully it can make a difference eventually. When we can't, when recycling isn't the answer quite yet. I mean, there are people working at the policy level. Believe me, there are people working at the policy level to get all of that changed, all kinds of organizations. Just Google, using less plastic, and you'll find all kinds of organizations. But the other things that we can do is we can just speak up as consumers and say, and same thing with microplastics. Akia, next time you're buying your body washes, you can say as you check out, I used to buy body washes with microplastics in them, but now I've stopped that because I know that's harmful, and I kind of wish you'd stock fewer cosmetic products with microplastics. We have to speak up. We have to speak up each and every opportunity that we have. And I'd like to add just a tiny bit, if I may, to Ruhi's answer, which I thought was a very good answer to Devon's question. The other thing is, we have a market system. We have a modified market system that works for the benefit of the people making the money. But nonetheless, it's a market system. And the fewer meat purchases that are made in grocery stores, the fewer meat meals that are ordered in restaurants, that's a decline in the demand for those products. My wife's an economist. I know this stuff. This is a decline in the demand for those products, and the restaurant owners and managers and the grocery store owners and managers will see the demand going down, and they will gradually restock less and less of those products as the demand for them goes down. Won't happen overnight, but it will happen because that's the way a free market system works. So that's another thing you can tell your friends, Devon, is that we're lowering, by eating less meat, we're lowering the demand, the retail demand for meat, and it will make a difference. And it is making a difference. It is making a difference already. Fewer and fewer farmers and farm managers are already producing less animal flesh for food consumption. So it's already a trend that's underway.
They're also saying on the news that because of the droughts in the Midwest, the people who are raising animals to sell, whether it's beef they were talking about mainly, they're selling them at a lower price because they can't afford to feed them now because there's no grass growing, because there's no water making the grass and other things that they eat. So they said that also that let's say the cows that have calves, whatever, there will not be that many calves next year. So therefore, there are going to be less meat on the market.
That's right.
They're worried about that. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, the global warming, climate change is, insofar as we're trying to change the system by our voluntary actions, the large-scale global warming effects are changing the system too. They're changing the system too. That's a really good point, Doris. I'm really glad you pointed that out. It's going to become less and less viable for farmers to raise meat for food. It just is.
So get your victory gardens growing.
Yeah, right.
Seriously, you need to get them growing. You could just grow herbs in your kitchen. You can do that.
Yeah, herbs can be grown on a sunny windowsill of a kitchen. Yep, absolutely. Well, I think we've reached our time. I'm going to once more zip it and turn it over to our hosts. And again, thanks everyone who's on this call, presenters and audience. It was fabulous, just fabulous.
Thank you again, Ria and Julie. Round of applause.
Sure. Maybe there'll be an act for people for next year's convention.
I know we're over time, but I would like to take a moment to recognize our president. Some of you already know, during Juneteenth this year, we recognized our president, Reggie Johnson. Stunner right there. And who has given literal decades of his life to this branch. So really cannot get enough applause. So, but he now has an actual plaque that we've given him. If you have it, Reggie. Yeah. Oh, it looks good. So I just wanted to go ahead and read it so everyone knows. So it's the Making the Difference Award, given to Reginald Johnson, president and founder of the MEAB of the NAACP for more than, and that's Metuchen Edison area branch of the NAACP, for more than 30 years of dedicated service and commitment. Thank you for everything you have done for the branch. You have given your time and talents, and it is very much appreciated. You truly have made a difference. Words cannot really express our heartfelt gratitude for all of your contributions. So again, thank you so much, Reggie. You've done way more than
I'd like to thank you. I'd like to thank everybody for this consideration. On the compost piece, I was disappointed that they said that you can't put your enemies or your neighbors on the compost, but because I have a list right there. But in receiving this award, in the life of a civil rights individual, there's 4 phases. The first phase is, who the heck is Reggie Johnson? The powers to be, when you go to them, they want to know who the heck you are. And then when you kind of prove yourself, the second phase is, we got to get Reggie Johnson involved. Where is he? Where is he? And then the next phase is, well, we're looking for a younger Reggie Johnson. And then the fourth phase, the last phase is, excuse my French, but who the hell is Reggie Johnson? So you'll find that this cycle runs kind of consistent as far as life is concerned, but and maybe I'm in the third phase right now because you know, I've always kind of went out and tried to find youth to come into this organization and take it over. And I really am so happy to see people like Akia and Devon and I keep Devon or Devon? Devon, okay. Every day I call you, get it together and Stuart. And so we've brought in some young folks to kind of take it over. And, I'm ready to stand to the side and see it work. So again, I'd like to thank everybody for being a part and thank you for the award.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And I think we saw a couple of young leaders tonight too, emerging.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. That was really impressive, guys.
Okay, do we get to go eat our mid?
You finish I'm looking for my dessert right now.
Yes, everyone please go eat, stuff your faces.
No meat though, no meat. Skip the meat, please.
Yeah,
No meat.
All right, good night, everyone.
Good night.
Night.
Good night,
Night.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Have a good night, everyone.
Hey,
Okay.
Akia,
You too, Sonali. Good night.
can you and Reggie stay back for like